Well, United States National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan was 2 weeks ago, more or less, in Saudi Arabia with a lot of things. Actually, I think the United States want now to reset the relations with Saudi Arabia after a disastrous diplomatic problems with both two countries. This has a long story, a context before. Joe Biden himself, the president, United States president, as a special antipathy with MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, personally. So he called him a butcher, I think, something like that, when he was running for presidency before he was elected. Because MBS were kind of good, had kind of good relations with Trump. So we called Saudi Arabia a pariah state. So this was not very diplomatic from Joe Biden when he came into power as a president. Many things happened since then. And Saudi Arabia has now a different role. It plays a different role because it has approached to a multipolar view of the world, establishing links with China, deepening ties with Russia, and reestablishing relations with Iran, long time enemy of the other side of the Gulf. This relation between of hatred between Saudi Arabia and Iran was strengthened and sponsorized by the United States and Iran and Saudi Arabia. Now MBS knows that this was not a good deal for his country or for the region, for the stability of it, is the region where Saudi Arabia lies. So Saudi Arabia now is in the process of looking into the future and not being only dependent on the oil as a major oil producer, but with the responsibility with his biggest neighbor, Iran. And this was the peace between these two countries. I mean, the rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran was done by the Chinese. This area is very important for the Chinese One Belt, One Road initiative, Belt and Road initiative, the new Silk Roads, all these plans to use this as a corridor, different corridors in the area actually, to sell its goods as a major industrial power, China. So this is convenient for both China and for the region. But the United States now realizes that he is being thrown away from the region, and Joe Biden, as before Donald Trump and a lot of Republicans, for example, one of the candidates, one of the Republican candidates, DeSantis, has the same view on tightening the relations with Saudi Arabia because they see this is too crucial, too big to fail. I mean, Saudi Arabia cannot escape from our control. This is how the things are right now. But I think the Saudis have realized that they are more important now than other way around. I mean, they don't need so much the United States as otherwise. So right now there are a lot of possibilities in the East with China, with the partners in the region, in Asia with Russia, for example, for defense material, for weapons. The Saudis have bought a lot of material from the Americans traditionally, but they couldn't get, for example, I think F-35. I'm not sure, but if they could, they had to have less than Israel. I mean, Israel had always a strategic advantage. This is law in the bipartisan law in the United States. Anything that is sold to the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, whatever in that region, Middle East region, Israel has to have more of those. F-16, F-35, whatever. I think F-35, don't get me for sure, but I think F-35 the Saudis couldn't buy, or was a limited. I don't know how it was the thing. I remember that with Trump, he sold a lot of material to the Saudis, but always with this, they are not full allies, because the allies, the big ally of the Americans in the region are Israel, and there are many things here with problems between Israel and Saudi Arabia. First of all, they don't recognize each other still, and I think now Jake Sullivan have talked about this, and more important, in June, like in 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know the date, we don't know for sure, Blinken is traveling to Saudi Arabia, and I think he will speak about this to Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel and otherwise, so they can start doing a major concurrence, competitor, a competition, a new project of infrastructures in the region between the Mediterranean, from Israel until Jeddah, these areas, port areas in the Saudi Arabia, with railways to contrarrest the investments of the Chinese, and then make a sea road to India. And this is already was talked like 1 year ago when Biden visited Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. He traveled to Saudi Arabia. It was very, very, very cold welcome to him from MBS. They didn't even shake hands, and he realized that he was in a mess, because now the Saudis are not the Saudis of like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Forget that. Saudis have another lot of other things to offer and to play, so they won't do everything that the Americans are asking to. And back then, 1 year ago, they launched a new project. The I2U2 is an agreement, a Quad agreement between the United States, Israel, India, and the Emirates. And now they want, I think, they want to pull Saudi Arabia in to start doing this infrastructure with railway. But for that, they need the agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia, so they recognize each other and they can start having a free trade area, but as a corridor, actually. Why that? Because they want to decouple China, and they want to be independent of the Americans. I mean, this is geopolitics, American geopolitics, only for the interests of the hegemony of the Americans. Forget that. Forget Saudi Arabia. Forget Israel. Forget all these small India. The Americans are trying to use all these ones to be the major superpower in the world, and to decouple and to avoid that China still growth with its industrial capacity. The other thing that they are, I think, very concerned is the relation between Saudi Arabia and Russia, with the weapons that Russians are selling, the relation between Saudi Arabia and China, and the amounts of gas that Russia has sold in these last since the invasion of Ukraine, and is under sanctions. But the Saudis have doubled the purchase of gas, because they need gas for electricity, for air conditioning, for many things. And this is a concern that comes together with the OPEC plus, the oil producers with Russia. Yeah, OPEC plus Russia. They agreed on cutting down the production of oil, and this is a big problem for the world, but especially for the United States, for the consume that the United States required of oil, and they don't have. This is causing social problems in the United States. The prices, and for the other side, it is guaranteeing that Russia is not suffering from the sanctions, because the price raises so much that at the end, for the Russians, is a good deal, the sanctions. So they are in a big problem, the Americans, with all these sanctions, all these policies, the disasters. And now they are trying to bring Saudi Arabia together to see if they can remediate all this mess. So this project, I2U2, now includes only the Emirates, India, Israel, and USA, but is already one more geopolitical move from the Americans to guarantee that they have the control of the region. But they want Saudi Arabia and Israel in this I2U2, because that will decouple the supply chains from the Chinese there, like they did in Ukraine with this war in the Donbass, that now is a big war with Russia involved. They cut the relation between Germany and Russia, and now they want to do the same for this one belt and one road from the Chinese. Actually, in Ukraine is also cut because of this war. So is this disruptive policy. So we had Sheikh Sullivan in Saudi Arabia in May, and in June we will have the Secretary of State himself, Anthony Blinken. Other things that they might talk about. Let's see, I have here some notes. Yes, I want you to read, if you want, an article by Salman Rafi Sheikh. Is a student. He is a doctor, PhD student in London. He is a Pakistani national. He writes for the New Eastern Outlook, and I read every single of his articles, among other authors. This is one of my favorites. I will put the link here down below about Sheikh Sullivan in Saudi Arabia. To try to push China out of the region, but he said that this won't work, because right now Saudi Arabia has gained momentum, has gained a strategic autonomy that the United States cannot guarantee any longer. If they can promise that they will receive a lot of money, infrastructures, whatever, for the Saudis, right now is too late, because the autonomy strategic autonomy right now with the status quo is a multipolar world, with China as big partner. China, Russia, Iran, even Iran was unthinkable, and that they have to thank China for this. Now, Saudi Arabia, before, if you remember 10 years ago, you would say, oh, Saudi Arabia, oh, one day the oil is over and they are over, that will be desert again. I used to think that way. Right now, it's not necessarily like this, because they have a lot of money. They know that the oil era and gas era has more 30, 50 years. But now they can do the industrial revolution that they need to guarantee the future. And then they nuclear energy, whatever, a lot of the possibilities. And then they construct a nation in a new phase for the future without oil. So this is the time, and they have to take this opportunity. It's one-time opportunity in their history, and I think MBS has understand that clearly, and that's why you want to go back with this. And the author Salman says that actually all these visit from Jake Sullivan and next month from Blinken only shows that they are panicking in Washington, and they are trying to sell things that the Saudis might not be interesting any longer, because now also Saudi Arabia is a dialogue partner in the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is a security organization in the region that will is a multipolar kind of with diplomacy organization, where the states will deal among them with this very important principle of the international relations, and the visibility of security, something that the Americans never offered them. Actually, Saudi Arabia had a war there in Yemen, and now with the Chinese, with all this concept, there is not a truce. I mean, it's the end of the war. The war is over. So let's see what this brings. And because this year there were a lot of things happen that the Americans, I understand that why they are panicking. Actually, this comes from last year when Biden came to Saudi Arabia. That was after Putin had met Erdogan and Raisi, and they three together met, and they have dealt a lot of things in the region in a multipolar view, and with the rise of China in the region. Now that the Americans are seeing, now we are being kicked off, all these major powers are agreeing among them, and we don't want this. This is the old concept of the Anglo-Saxon influence of the hegemony. No, we have to disseminate here problems among them and play one against the other. And here they are again. The Americans, I think they are not offering nothing substantially good that brings peace or development. They are only bringing. They want to. I think one of the other uh, major goals with all these attempt. I think this is an attempt, only an attempt from the Americans to approach the Saudis, is to bring the Saudis against the Iranians again, because right now the Iranians, because of the Trump stupidity uh, of ripping the agreement of the GCPOA off. He just ripped off this out with this agreement. Now the Iranians can even start thinking about having a nuclear weapon. That's what is normally now all analysts say, and if they have peace with the Saudis, their allies in the region, Israel will be more alone. And this is the other part, part of the thing. They want Israel to be recognized by Saudi Arabia, because with the Abraham Accords that they were already by the Emirates and Bahrain, and after with Morocco, so some major Arabic and Muslim countries have recognized Israel, and they want to guarantee that that Saudi Arabia also recognizes Israel. Is an integration. I don't see it bad in itself, but doesn't requires from Israel nothing. This is only one side again. I mean, where are the rights of the Palestinians in Israel? They don't even talk about this in their Abraham Accords. So that is a major problem between Saudi Arabia and Israel, is the Palestinian cause. The Saudis have not done much, but theoretically they are always have been, and that they don't recognize Israel because of the Palestinian issue. So that will be it's maybe will fail all these strategies from the Americans. Actually, it failed last year when Biden was there. Was a total disaster. His visit to Saudi Arabia, and now he sends Sullivan, didn't bring much, and now Blinken next month. We will look at this, and we will talk about this after that for sure. So today is a little bit was a little bit longer. It takes time. I tell you, people, 3 years ago. I start my other channel in Portuguese, which is my mother tongue. I started like this with a couple of guys only seeing, and now 3 years later we are 3,000. And I bring people, and I interview people, very interesting people of international relations on this field of geopolitics. I will do the same thing in English, so keep posted if you like it. I ask you to give the like and to share if you want, to comment. You're very welcome. And so see you here soon.